Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hello and welcome to Produce Talks, the CPMA podcast. This episode, as we hit the 3-month mark of the COVID-19 pandemic, we revisit some of the impacts along the supply chain and unpack some key takeaways from over the last 3 months as businesses continue to adapt and prepare for a busy summer and harvest season. We cover a variety of topics, including labor, corporate culture, the supply chain, the temporary foreign worker program, product availability, and much more. Guests on this episode include Stéphanie Levasseur, president of Quebec Apple Growers, Satri Alpine, director of talent and culture at Oppy, and Tammy Vautour, quality assurance director at Metro.
On the line now is Stéphanie Levasseur, president of Quebec Apple Growers. Welcome, Stéphanie.
Thank you.
And you are also second vice president of the Canadian Horticulture Council, and you also run your family orchard in Quebec, Au Coeur de la Pomme.
Yeah, Au Coeur de la Pomme. We're in the Eastern Townships, just on the border of Vermont.
Yeah, I love that name. In the heart of the apple or heart of the apple?
Yeah, at the heart of the apple.
At the heart of the apple. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so this episode, we're doing a reflection, so to speak, of the last 3 months. And it'll be great to get your perspective as, you know, someone who represents growers and, of course, is one yourself. So getting into it, over the last 3 months, you know, we've seen businesses adapt at an exceptional pace to protect frontline workers while ensuring, you know, that supply of fresh food across Canada. What measures were implemented at your facilities, at Quebec Apple Orchards, at your orchard, to keep product moving?
At the time this pandemic started, for most growing operations, it's a slower time of year. We do work in the orchard in the winter to prune, but it's outside, so it's probably it's easy to maintain distanciation once you get over the first wave of fear of what's this thing coming at us. But I think for the outside work in March and April, it was okay for most orchards when they had their workers. For packers, it was more of a complicated thing to organize, I guess, because they have people working more closely together on packing lines, and so they had to reorganize everything inside the plants for everybody to keep their distances and reorganize things to sanitize everything daily, if not twice or 3 times daily, get protective gear for everybody, and then reorganize everything for shipping and receiving. Most of our packers have practically locked down. Nobody goes in and out. Not even truck drivers or suppliers, so everything has been reorganized to maintain contact as little as possible with people from outside to minimize risk.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting that, you know, your point about the timeline of it. I've heard from a couple growers in Canada say, you know, if this was in the fall or, you know, late summer, the impacts could have been a lot more devastating.
It would have been quite different probably, but it would have helped with getting our workers here because this time of year, that's the main impact that we've seen, is that March, April, May is when foreign workers come into the country. Yep. So that's created huge problems.
And I mean, we've been working hard with our government advocacy efforts, have been very strong in advocating for that ongoing support. We know that, you know, temporary foreign workers are so key to, you know, supplying the country with Canadian grown fresh fruits and vegetables. And of course, I mean, with CHC, and I'm sure with yourselves as Quebec apple growers, I mean, everyone across the board certainly, I think, understands that's a key piece for farmers and for the agri-food sector.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the work that's been done is like humongous. It's everybody's been pulling, the same way to try and facilitate travel and papers and stuff. I think what we're facing is partly some workers not wanting to travel, partly some workers coming from country where they can't travel out of. So that's been part of the problem getting them here. But yeah, so we probably have half of the workers we need at this point. In our industry, the workers that come in early are usually key workers that do pruning or that operate tractors, spraying equipment, field work. So they have experience. They're hard to replace with people that have never been on a farm before. So the initiative to try and get out of work people to come and help on farms is great, but it's not helping to replace key workers that are not coming in or that are late coming in. And then our big impact in the apple business will be at harvest, because we get a lot of transfers from other farms when their work wears down at the end of the summer. They move on to apple farms to pick, and if they didn't make it to the first farm, they won't make it to our farms, right?
Right. Yeah. And that was what I was going to ask was, moving into the summer and of course into the fall, what do you anticipate any risks, or, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, it's hard. It's really hard to quantify. We don't really have means except surveys of finding out, how many workers are not here, or are we expecting to not show up? So it's hard to say. We know there will be people not coming, and we know there will be transfers not happening. There are measures that government has put in place to try and use the workers that are here that were supposed to go back home earlier to transfer to farms, like to new farms. That wasn't the plan initially, but they will make it easier for those transfers to happen, whereas usually they would not be allowed. So we did see yesterday a letter from Ferme, Quebec, that saying they're organizing flights to fly workers back that are done their term here, but they're asking the farmers to ask them if they want to stay on to move on to a different farm. So we know these are a possibility, but is it going to work? Is it going to be enough? We don't know. At harvest, we also don't know what the situation will be for the rest of the province if everything is reopened and most people are back at work. There might not be that many people left to come and help. So we'll see. Interesting.
Yeah. It's as a reflection of the last 3 months, just everything just evolves much more rapidly, I find. Yeah. So yeah, I guess it is certainly hard to predict.
Yeah, and the difference between apples and the other fruit and vegetable sectors is that we are a perennial plant. So the fruits are growing whether we want it or not, right? So it's not like guys that know they're not going to have their workers and decided that they're going to seed half their fields or something like that, so they would have enough workers to do the work. The trees are in the ground, the apples are growing, everything needs to be done and harvested, and we don't know if we'll have enough workers. So,
right.
So we'll see.
Okay. Well,
that's agriculture for you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all we can do is hope and be optimistic, right? So
you have to be in this business.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely that. So I guess just keeping that reflection going, looking back to, even March, April, what would you say have been some of the major takeaways or lessons learned for yourself and for other farmers, during a global pandemic like this?
I think being president of the Quebec Apple Growers, what we have had to do very quickly and effectively is communicate better with our members, making sure that people were aware of what was going on, what was requested of them with sanitary measures, how to treat the workers, the local and foreign workers, how to reorganize their work, their farm, their kiosks, their, everything, so that they could keep going, and giving all the services to our members while everybody's working from home. So that's been quite the adaptation to at the office, and hats off to them, because they've been working hard.
Yeah, it's a lot of information to get out. I know that our communications department certainly has been working hard as well.
Yeah, and it was confusing. I mean, when it first started, it's still confusing sometimes. There's, the measures are changing all the time, and you get information from the provincial level, from the federal level, from all kinds of places, and you want to be sure that your members are getting the right information and they understand it, and so it's been hectic.
Yeah, certainly the pace of the work is something that I've never seen before, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
With all the Zoom calls, I learned a new term this week, which was virtual fatigue. I think people are getting a little bit tired of all the screen time and all the Zoom calls and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates a challenge for sure for on the whole labor and HR front in itself. So I mean, on that note, going back to certain takeaways, were there any innovations or technologies, whether in the fields or in the offices, that you've particularly benefited from? And, do you foresee continuing to use those in the years or months ahead?
Well, technology-wise, I think the Zoom and platforms like that to do our calls has been widely adopted everywhere. I think when we are allowed to have physical meetings again, we will, because it's always more productive to see people. You get, you end up talking about different things at lunch and on breaks and things
that
like
whole
that.
social component. For sure.
Yeah. And in the field, sadly, most of the innovations that had been brought into our sector in the past few years are not really adapted to 2-meter distance between people. Because we had been starting to work a lot with platforms where workers are 4 or 6 or 8 of them on a platform that rolls between the rows, that can be elevated at different heights, that their different stations can be at different heights. Mm-hmm. And they use that to prune, to tie new trees, to harvest. So
they need to be in close quarters, though.
Well, they're closer together on the platforms. Now, they're very expensive, so you want to have the most people you can on them. If you have to start using half the people on them, they're a lot less attractive.
I see.
So hopefully we get over this hump and get some kind of social immunity or something, like a community immunity, something to be able to start working again at a somewhat normal way. For
sure. All right. Well, I mean, it's great conversation. It's great insight, Stephanie, especially around, the temporary foreign worker program. I know that's a bit of a difficult subject, but certainly an important one now and over the last couple of months, and certainly going forward into harvest season. So,
well, one last thing about that. I think if one thing this crisis will have made governments understand how, and population understand how important these guys are, and how we need to make movement between farms and access to this workforce, make it easier to access the workforce, and keep them coming, because we know now that we can't replace them with just anybody off the street. So
yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think, people, it's tricky. People are talking about it. It's just such a key component to growers and for the agri-food sector as a whole in Canada, that in the very least, I think it's good that people are talking about it, and maybe that the people that are more aware of that, can bring that to light more. So, okay. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. Again, really great to have you join. Great perspective, and thanks for the discussion.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too.
Coming up are interviews with Satri Alpine, Director of Talent and Culture at Oppy, and Tammy Vautour, Quality Assurance Director at Metro. First, a quick word from our sponsor, Nature Fresh Farms.
Hi, it's Sarah here from Nature Fresh Farms. As businesses and customers adjust to the new measures implemented to keep our workplaces and communities safe, Nature Fresh Farms continues to maintain comprehensive health and safety policies to ensure our employees and produce are protected. With these procedures in place and through the hard work of our team members, we are confident in our ability to provide a consistent supply of fresh produce. To learn more about our efforts in protecting our workplace, visit www.naturefresh.ca.
Satri, thanks for joining.
Thanks, Ian. Really happy to be here today.
This episode, we're taking another look at the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as we hit the 3-month mark, perhaps reflect on, some of the key lessons learned since March. I don't know about you, but for me, March feels like it was ages ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely. These last few months, in some ways, have gone so fast, and in other ways have been marked quite slowly. So it's interesting how quickly everything has evolved. Yeah,
and we saw, especially early on, businesses had to adapt so quickly to protect frontline workers while keeping that supply chain moving. What measures were implemented within Oppy's facilities to, keep product moving?
So like all companies, we also needed to adapt really quickly, and our hazard control measures are continuing to evolve through this crisis. In March, all employees that could work from home were moved away from our offices and have remained working from their home spaces for the past 3 months. Much support has been focused on our frontline workers to understand the hazards and take all steps we could to mitigate them. We moved quickly to lock down our facilities from outside visitors and worked to secure personal protective equipment such as masks and face shields for those supply chain workers who needed to remain at our facilities. Using a risk-based approach, we have developed a hazard mitigation plan that adopts all public health recommendations and in some cases exceeds them, as the health and safety of our people, of course, remains our top concern. More recently, we completed a health and safety training module for our frontline team members to ensure that the enhanced measures and policies and protocols were well understood and fully operationalized. Training was done on site for not only our team members, but also for our contract workers in our repack lines.
That's great. Yeah. It sounds like that safety module certainly sounds like that was a new initiative.
Well, it was something that we have. I think this is sort of similar. You do everything that you can, and you do your best to put in everything and put everything into place. But that being said, there's no time to really pause and then do training around it. Well, now we've been able to turn back around and ensure that all of those pieces and practices that we've been doing for so long are now captured in a more formalized way and are able to be put forward in more of a training package. So it really operationalizes and cements the things that we were doing from the start.
Yeah. And I mean, labor and HR focuses, especially have really been at the forefront of all the conversations, around COVID, particularly when we're talking about, the temporary foreign worker program, limited capacities on supply chains as physical distancing measures, needed to be implemented. There's just so many impacts on that labor side. So, I mean, you touched on it a little bit. Is there anything else that, Oppy has really been doing to ensure that employees are protected?
Yeah, we're certainly lucky in that regard. We've got committed team members that have continued to show up and bust their butts day in and day out to keep produce moving through the supply chain. Mm-hmm. So again, using a risk-based approach, we've ensured physical distancing in our facilities, even moving our repack lines and putting in new break rooms to ensure that we could have the appropriate spacing. We've put into place enhanced cleaning and disinfection practices and mandated the use of personal protective equipment. And then we've also put in place on-site health assessments, including temperature checks prior to entry into our facilities. Okay. And I'm fairly certain as we continue to learn more, our practices are going to evolve to ensure that we're doing our best to mitigate the risks of transmissions on-site.
No, definitely. And I mean, as things hopefully open up or as new policies and government guidance comes into play, things will continue to adapt, especially on that, safety side of things. And so looking beyond safety, I mean, that's number one, but there are still pieces around productivity and corporate culture and, keeping morale high. Oppy certainly is a company that, you read about and has been progressive over the years. We had John Anderson, on the show about a year and a half ago talking about corporate culture. Have you seen a shift at all in corporate culture at Oppy, since the pandemic began? And, what has been done to address any concerns from employees?
Yeah, thanks for your question. And certainly at Oppy, our positive and team-oriented and passionate culture has really contributed to our success. So it's nice to hear your comments there. We have actually not seen a shift in culture over the last few months in a way that I've been able to recognize. And I believe it's really held us together as we've all approached our work a little bit differently. And how we've been really working to support our team members and our culture is striving to be transparent with communications. Mm-hmm. So we pulled together a cross-functional COVID team that meets 3 times per week now. It was every day in the beginning to discuss hotspots, issues, and progress. Updates are then posted to our intranet COVID feed and then sent out regularly or as needed in other forms. So we use a variety of media to get our messaging across. John's also done a series of video messages that have provided updates on the company, including pertinent business issues and plans. We really believe that ongoing communication and accessibility is critical and serves to keep the teams connected and informed. And that really feeds our culture as well.
Yeah, and I mean, that transparency, it's certainly one that I've heard from a couple companies, it's so key, especially, that top-down transparency is it's so important.
I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, in many ways, our lives have slowed down. You're not commuting, but I've found and I've heard from a lot of people in the industry, simply that the pace of work has really picked up over the last few months. I learned a new term this week, which was virtual fatigue, which is a new one. From your perspective in the HR and corporate culture world, how can companies support staff when we're talking about virtual fatigue and support socially and emotionally and so on?
So I completely agree with you on the not slowing down part. I know perhaps that's been the experience for some people, but my life certainly has not slowed down. And I know that sentiment would be echoed across our company. I believe that companies can take a lead in offering counseling and support services, of course, as well as a variety of wellness program offerings to meet a variety of needs. Everyone's different in what they're experiencing. Some people have childcare and sort of family or elder care issues, and others are experiencing more feelings of loneliness or isolation. So there's varying needs in this. Topics such as resilience, mindfulness, and tackling anxiety and depression can be really helpful, as well as virtual exercise or fitness options are good to support physical and mental wellness. To combat social isolation that some may be feeling during this time, platforms to create social connection can be very beneficial, such as having virtual coffee time or social hour. So, for example, we had a virtual Cinco de Mayo, which was really fun.
Oh, nice.
Eating chips and having margaritas.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we've been doing happy hours basically every Friday for 20 or 30 minutes at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's just a nice way to connect.
Yeah.
Another thing is a sense of purpose and an attitude of gratitude is also recognized to positively influence mental health. And Oppy has taken a concerted effort to step up our recognition. Mostly on our company intranet, we do sort of recognition posts. And leaders have published a hero digest of those important stories to punctuate a culture of recognition and gratitude in amongst our company.
It sounds like a great idea. So switching gears to innovation and technology, have there been any new innovations or technologies, whether in the fields or the offices, that have been leveraged, over the last few months?
So we've continued to pursue innovation in all areas of our business through these times. And I think perhaps in some cases the business of the pandemic has taken over everything and crowded out the space for innovation, but we've made it a concerted effort to maintain focus in this important area. Although the current emergency has necessitated an immediate response and a need, maintaining a future orientation remains critical. So there is a number of things we're continuing to explore and pursue. Certainly, as most organizations have experienced, we're perfecting the connection space, both internally and with our grower and customer partners, as in-person visits have taken a back seat.
Right.
There are learnings from this we're taking note of, and we're going to continue to refine and perfect, as undoubtedly the landscape will be changed for some time.
Have there been any unanticipated benefits or new business practices that, longer term that has come out of, some of these platforms?
I think that we're still learning about that. Like every organization, we've really taken to Zoom, and there's some other things that we're exploring. And I think that we'll continue to evolve and learn and change. I think there's some things that we'll definitely keep and hold and continue on with. The virtual huddles have been really a positive thing that have come out of this that we've really found to be useful and will continue. We've had a lot more, of course, meetings virtually, as you have to, and there's some learnings there around the way to structure meetings that I think will be interesting and useful going forward. And I think that this one will continue to evolve, the different technologies that we will use going forward as we're still exploring a number of new ones.
Yeah, no, and I've noticed meetings that used to be 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes they're now taking 15 minutes. I just find that things are just a little bit more to the point, right on task and on the agenda. Maybe that's just my personal experience, but it's interesting.
I think that's actually important because sometimes it's easier in a in-person meeting to kind of drag things out. But you're right, that virtual fatigue sort of drags things down when you're sitting in an online meeting. So it's important to be succinct and to the point. And if there's been some learnings around that we can get out of this, I think that's positive.
And so before we wrap up, before I let you go, as we look ahead to hopefully not a second wave, but whatever the next few months to a year hold, what would you say has been the most significant lesson learned for you throughout this whole experience?
Yeah, and I'm sure that my lessons learned are also going to evolve over the next year. But so far, I would say that a significant lesson is that adaptability of people, of processes and institutions at large is critical. Of course, we already knew this pre-pandemic, but this idea has been dramatically punctuated in the last few months. Around the ability to be creative and flexible in the face of new situations and capitalize on change, it's really a survival skill that will make a big difference in organizations and also on a personal level.
Yeah, no, I think that adaptability is so key, especially when we're talking about new processes and new technologies. Great to have you on, Satri. It's really great insight. from that HR talent culture perspective. So thank you so much for joining.
You're more than welcome, Ian. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here with you today.
And my next guest is going to be providing us with a retail perspective, Tammy Vautour, Quality Assurance Director at Metro. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you for having me.
So it's pretty crazy. We're hitting the 3-month mark already of the COVID-19 pandemic. Going back to March, as many storefronts were forced to temporarily close their doors. Obviously, grocery chains remained an essential service, getting food to Canadians' kitchens and tables. I imagine it's certainly been a whirlwind experience for you from that QA side.
It's definitely been challenging, but our team has definitely stepped up and we're getting it done.
And so, we're going to be talking about those impacts and some of the lessons learned across the supply chain. And every conversation within the industry related to COVID-19 touches on labor, and the impacts that the challenges with labor have had in Canada, from temporary foreign worker program to, simply keeping employees safe and morale high. Labor and HR focuses, remain at the forefront of conversations around the supply chain. What has Metro done to ensure that, employees are protected?
I'd say across the board, we are extremely proud of our Metro team. Under these conditions that seem to change and evolve daily, I would say between our colleagues in the office, the DC and stores, they've shown a great sense of pride serving our communities. You also see the appreciation from the teams when measures were put in place, such as face shields and masks being offered, plexiglass being put up as security barriers, disinfecting carts, to limiting the number of consumers in the store. Everything was done with the consumer and our teams in mind to ensure the best experience for everyone. In our DCs, we have nurses doing health checks for all employees on shifts prior to their shift commencing. It's every employee must enter through one door and exit out the other. There's been a lot of things that have been put in place for their safety, our safety. I'm one of the ones that's working in the office. I have my teams that work directly in the warehouse. So I know that putting these little measures in place, having arrows direct the flow of traffic in one way and out the other, has definitely been appreciated by the teams. I know that directly in the DCs, there's been various measures put in place, be it a reduction of interaction, if you will, less paperwork being handed from one person to the other, limiting who's in an area. My own team, they limit where they're going. When they do their inspections, who's around them. So I think there's definitely been a lot of things put in place that it took some adjusting to get to, but
right,
it's quite positive.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it's that's a really interesting perspective because it's a little bit behind the scenes, I guess, for many of us, and obviously for consumers. So.
Yeah, I mean, we take for granted. I mean, these employees, they come in and they do their job and they're very effective and do a great job. But now having put all these extra little procedures in place, of course, it can be a little bit time consuming, but everybody's made it work and everybody feels safe. I think there hasn't been issues in regards to the things that have been put in place. More so just, I think as everything evolves day by day, there's a new step or there's something new added because you're evolving as the situation changes.
Yeah, but that's great. I mean, but it's all about, that transparency and having everybody on the same page.
For sure.
So switching gears now to the supply chain and product demand. We know that product demand is always shifting, even looking back before the pandemic. Do you feel that the COVID-19 pandemic has shifted availability and quality of produce?
You definitely felt the urgency in our customers due to early on panic buying. The increase in sales on staple items showed that customers are really trying to plan for an unknown future. I'd say it's a bit more stabilized now. I'd say in regards to the future, though, I think everyone is on the same boat waiting to see how the foreign worker program will play out. I think certain commodities over other commodities will be more challenging. Therefore, it's really something that you can only monitor as time goes on. Right now, we're just sitting in the unknown and kind of waiting it out.
Right. So it's difficult, I guess, to really give a snapshot of what this could look like in a few months.
I think it's difficult just because of certain, like I said, the foreign worker program, there's a lot of uncertainty around there. You have certain suppliers, local suppliers that feel comfortable, whereas you have others that are really in a panic because they're unsure if they're going to be able to get their crops out this fall. So there's so much that goes into it that it's hard to say, because we had so many speculations earlier on and they've played out differently, or they've come, so you kind of just have to wait, unfortunately.
Have you seen any impacts or changes in expectations or anticipations around local produce availability or the availability from global sources?
I would say in regards to local availability, of course, the consumer, that's ideally what they want when we get to this time of the year. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I think there's a shift in not so much the perspective, but the consumer understanding that right now, if we're capable to source it from by importing it, they're okay with it. Whereas maybe you might hear more complaints if there wasn't this pandemic in place.
Right. Yeah. And so that kind of leads into my next question a little bit around transportation and logistics. Early on in the pandemic, there were initial concerns about that availability, and those impacts on transportation. What have been the major impacts, in the area of transportation that Metro has seen, that you've seen, and what do the next few months look like to you in the area of transportation?
I'd say in the early stages of the pandemic, there was definitely concerns over transportation, as people were unsure if drivers were going to want to risk themselves, going to suppliers, picking up the produce, going through the border, having that exchange there, and then coming onto our properties and doing the deliveries. So the driver would be at risk at so many various points that, we all kind of speculated and thought, and we assumed there would be issues, but to be honest, there hasn't really been that much disruption in regards to transportation. I would say that going forward, I think that it'll just stabilize even more than what it already is. But it's definitely something that we thought was going to be a huge problem, and didn't end up being a problem at all.
Certainly a positive on that front.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so, as we look ahead to hopefully not a second wave, if not a second wave, then a new normal. I've had people tell me that they hate that term. They're completely sick of it. What has been the most significant lesson learned throughout this experience for you?
I think more so than a lesson learned, it would be a good takeaway. And the takeaway would be that nothing is impossible. And under tough times, we have a solid, strong team who is willing to pull together in ways we never thought possible to make the system work. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking all areas. Like, I know Ideal and Produce, but I'm talking all areas of the company. So should there be a second wave, or what is considered the new normal, I think any issues that need to be ironed out, we're taking care of quickly earlier on, so that our team is going to be ready for whatever's going to come.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we've certainly seen and heard that, people are stepping up, and you see people step up within companies, or, within suppliers, vendors, along the whole supply chain. So it's great to see. Tammy, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. It was great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks again to Stephanie, Tammy, and Satri for joining this episode. Be sure to stay tuned to CPMA updates on COVID-19 at cpma.ca/industry. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.